Right now, as you watch this video, your brain is lying to you. Not metaphorically, not poetically, structurally. The image in front of you, this frame, these colors, the depth you think you perceive, none of it arrived the way you think it did. Your eyes are not cameras. They never were. They don't capture the world and deliver it faithfully to your mind. What you're seeing right now has been cut, filtered, edited, and partially fabricated before your conscious mind ever received it. And by the end of this video, you will seriously question whether you have ever truly seen anything at all. You think your vision is your most reliable sense. It feels seamless, instant, high definition, a perfect window onto the world. But that confidence is exactly what makes the deception so effective. We build courtrooms around eyewitness testimony. We say seeing is believing as though it were a law of nature. Our entire framework of truth rests on visual certainty. But what if the sense you trust most is the one doing the most editing? What if the reason your vision feels so flawless is not because it shows you everything, but because it's extraordinarily good at hiding what it removes, invents, and rearranges before you ever become aware of it? If I told you that right now, in this very moment, there's a hole in your vision, a gap where you literally see nothing, would you believe me? Probably not, but it's there. Each of your eyes has a blind spot, right where the optic nerve connects to the retina. No photoreceptors, no data, just a void. And you have never once noticed it, because your brain fills it in automatically, seamlessly, like Photoshop running on autopilot. This is not a metaphor, this is anatomy. Your brain is editing out its own limitations and presenting you with a finished image you never questioned. Here is the model most people carry around without ever questioning it. Light enters the eye, hits the retina, sends a signal to the brain, and the brain displays the image, like a screen receiving a broadcast. It is simple, intuitive, and almost entirely wrong. What actually happens is far stranger. The retina captures fragmented, upside-down, two-dimensional data. Not an image, but scattered electrical impulses. That raw data then passes through at least 30 different areas of the visual cortex, each one handling something separate: edges, motion, color, depth, faces. No single region sees the whole picture. Vision is not a photograph delivered to your mind. It is an assembly project, constructed from pieces, in real time, by a brain you never asked to build it. Now here is a number that should unsettle you. At any given moment, you see only about 1% of your visual field in genuine detail. 1%. That tiny zone of sharpness comes from the fovea, a small pit in the center of your retina packed with photoreceptors. Everything outside that narrow focus is low resolution, vague, impressionistic. And yet the world looks rich and detailed in every direction. Why? Because your brain fills in the rest using memory, patterns, and prediction. Think of a movie set. The building in front of the camera looks solid and real, but walk behind it, and there is nothing, just scaffolding and air. Your peripheral vision works the same way. It is the painted backdrop your brain constructs so convincingly that you never think to look behind it. It gets stranger. Your eyes are not still. They make rapid, darting movements called saccades, roughly 3 to 5 every second, jumping between points of focus faster than you can consciously register. And during each of those jumps, your brain does something remarkable. It shuts off visual processing entirely, not dims it, not blurs it, turns it off, to prevent the smeared mess of motion blur that would otherwise overwhelm your perception. This means you are functionally blind for brief moments, dozens of times per minute, every waking hour of your life. Added together, the total comes to roughly 40 minutes or more of pure blindness per day, hidden from you completely. Your brain stitches the missing frames together so cleanly that you never notice the gaps. You have probably experienced proof of this without realizing it. Think of the stopped clock illusion, that strange moment when you glance at a clock, and the second hand seems to hang frozen just a beat too long before it moves. That is not the clock hesitating. That is your brain backfilling a moment it literally missed, stretching the first thing it saw to cover the darkness it deleted. And the editing does not stop at filling in gaps. Sometimes your brain fails to notice changes that are happening directly in front of you, large, obvious changes that should be impossible to miss. In one famous experiment, a stranger approached people on the street to ask for directions. Mid-conversation, 2 workers carried a door between them, momentarily breaking the line of sight, and in that brief interruption, the stranger was swapped with a completely different person, different face, different clothes, different voice. Most people kept talking without noticing. This is called change blindness. And it is not a failure of attention. It reveals something far more fundamental. Your brain does not store a full, detailed picture of the world in front of you. It stores a summary, a compressed file, a rough approximation. And when that approximation is close enough to what it expects, you accept it without question. You do not see what is there. You see what your brain decides is probably there. So if your brain is not faithfully recording the world, if it is filling in blind spots, masking blackouts, and glossing over major changes, then what exactly is it doing? The answer is one of the most important ideas in modern neuroscience, and it flips everything you assume about perception. Your brain does not wait for your eyes to deliver information and then react. It works in the opposite direction. It predicts what you are about to see, generates a full internal model of the world before any light reaches your retina, and then checks incoming sensory data only to see whether its prediction was wrong. If the prediction is close enough, it stands. If something unexpected appears, a correction is made, a brief error signal that updates the model. That is what you experience as seeing. Not the world itself, but your brain's best guess about the world, quietly revised in real time. Most people assume perception is bottom-up, that the eyes send raw data to the brain, and the brain assembles the picture. But the real direction of flow is mostly top-down. The brain generates the image first. The eyes just confirm or correct it. You are not seeing what is there. You are seeing what your brain expects to be there, unless something forces it to change its mind. You have felt this prediction engine at work, even if you never had a name for it. You are walking through a crowd and suddenly you see a friend's face, clear, unmistakable, only to realize a moment later it was a stranger who looked nothing like them. Your brain did not misread the face. It generated the face before your eyes had time to confirm it. The prediction came first. The correction came second. This same engine is why you see faces in clouds, in electrical outlets, in the burnt pattern on a piece of toast. That phenomenon is called pareidolia, and it is not a glitch. It is your prediction system working exactly as designed, biased toward over-detection, because evolution made the math very simple. The cost of seeing a face that is not there is almost nothing. The cost of missing one that is a predator, a rival, an ally, could be everything. So your brain made its choice a long time ago. It would rather hallucinate a face than miss one. Neuroscientist Anil Seth put this more sharply than anyone. He called perception a controlled hallucination, and he did not mean it as a metaphor. Here is the logic. If your brain is constantly generating a model of the world from the inside out, and only adjusting that model when sensory data forces a correction, then what you experience at every moment is not reality. It is a simulation, a hallucination constrained by input. A true hallucination, the kind associated with psychosis or fever, is simply what happens when the brain's predictions run unchecked, when sensory data loses its leash. Normal perception is the same process, just better regulated. The hallucination is still happening. It is just being corrected often enough that it stays useful. This is not fringe philosophy. This is the working model in mainstream computational neuroscience, and its implication is staggering. The solid, vivid, objective world you feel you are looking at right now is itself the illusion. Out beyond your skull, there are no colors. There is no sound. There is no warmth or texture. There is only energy, wavelengths, pressure waves, molecular vibrations. The entire rich world of your experience is being rendered inside 3 pounds of wet tissue in the dark. You have never been outside that theater, not once. And perhaps nothing reveals the depth of this fabrication more clearly than color. Because color does not exist outside your brain. That is not an exaggeration. It is physics. Out beyond your skull, there are no colors, only electromagnetic wavelengths, vibrations of energy rippling through space. Red is not a property of a rose. It is a label your brain invents when photons vibrating at roughly 700 nanometers strike your retina and trigger a specific pattern of neural activity. The rose has no color. The wavelength has no color. The experience of red exists only inside your head, and this applies to everything. Every sunset you have watched, every painting that moved you, every face you have ever loved, all of it was a translation your brain composed from raw, colorless data. A translation with no objective original. Other species translate differently. The mantis shrimp has 16 types of photoreceptors, compared to your 3. It is processing wavelengths you cannot detect, in combinations you cannot fathom. building a version of the visual world that is literally unimaginable to a human mind. Not difficult to imagine, impossible. We do not see light. We see our brain's opinion about light, and we have mistaken that opinion for the thing itself our entire lives. You may remember the moment this truth accidentally went viral. In 2015, a photograph of a dress broke the internet, not because of its design, but because millions of people looking at the exact same image saw completely different colors. Some saw blue and black. Others saw white and gold. The arguments were fierce, because both sides were certain. But the disagreement was never about opinion. It was about prediction. Each viewer's brain made a different assumption about the lighting conditions in the photograph, and that assumption changed the colors it constructed. Same input, different rendering. This was not a fun internet quirk. It was a window into something deeply unsettling. Your brain is always guessing about color, and different brains do not always guess the same way. If two people cannot agree on the color of a dress while staring at the same image, what else might you be seeing differently from the person sitting right next to you? Now zoom out. The electromagnetic spectrum stretches from radio waves longer than buildings to gamma rays smaller than atoms, an almost incomprehensibly vast range of energy. And visible light, the only portion your eyes can detect, accounts for roughly 0.035% of that spectrum. You are nearly blind to the universe. If you stretch the full electromagnetic spectrum across the United States, coast to coast, the sliver of visible light would occupy a strip no wider than a single dime. That is the keyhole through which you see everything, every landscape, every face, every star. And from that impossibly thin slice, your brain builds what you call visual reality, an entire world, constructed from almost nothing. What you experience as seeing is not a window thrown open onto the fullness of what exists. It is a keyhole, and you have spent your entire life mistaking it for an open door. This raises a question that cuts deeper than neuroscience. If your brain is not showing you reality, if it is constructing a filtered, color-coded, predictive simulation, then why? Why would evolution build a perceptual system that lies? Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman asked exactly this, and his answer is one of the most disturbing ideas in modern science. Using evolutionary game theory simulations, Hoffman tested a simple competition: organisms whose perception tracks objective truth versus organisms whose perception tracks fitness payoffs, not what is real, but what is useful for survival. The result was consistent and unambiguous. Fitness beats truth. Every time. Organisms tuned to reality were outcompeted and driven to extinction by organisms tuned to survival shortcuts. The implication is stark. Evolution did not design your eyes to show you what is real. It designed them to show you what keeps you alive. Truth was never the goal. It was never even a priority. Your perceptual system is not a window. It is an interface, like a computer desktop. The icons on your screen do not resemble the electrical processes inside the machine. They are simplified, color-coded shortcuts, designed to help you act without understanding what is actually happening underneath. Reality is the machine. You only see the icons. Stay with the desktop for a moment, because the metaphor runs deeper than it first appears. When you drag a file to the trash can on your screen, the icon does not look like what is actually happening inside the computer. There is no tiny bin. There is no paper being crumpled. What is really occurring is a cascade of voltage changes across silicon circuits, a process so alien to your experience that representing it accurately would make the interface useless. And that is exactly the point. The interface works precisely because it hides reality. It replaces complexity with simplicity, so you can act without understanding the machinery underneath. Hoffman argues that your entire visual experience operates on the same principle. The apple you see on the table is an icon, a colorful, three-dimensional shortcut rendered by your brain. Useful, functional, convincing. But it does not resemble the quantum fields and vibrating particles that actually occupy that space. You have never seen an apple. You have seen a survival shortcut shaped like one. By now, something in you might be resisting. If your eyes lie, why trust anything at all? But here is the reframe worth holding on to. This editing is not a flaw. It is the most sophisticated feature your biology ever developed. A brain that showed you everything, every wavelength, every quantum fluctuation, every raw data point from every sensory channel at once, would not make you more aware. It would paralyze you. You would be blind from overload, frozen in a flood of meaningless noise. The editing is what makes you functional. You do not see reality because seeing reality would destroy your ability to act within it. Your brain does not show you the truth. It shows you just enough of a useful fiction to survive another day. Now bring this home. Bring it somewhere it actually touches you. If everything you see is a brain-generated model, a prediction dressed up as perception, then that includes the face you see when you look in the mirror. That face is not what you look like. It is your brain's prediction of what you look like, shaped by self-image, by mood, by years of accumulated expectation. On a confident morning, the face looks sharper, clearer, more defined. On a bad day, the same face can seem wrong in ways you cannot quite articulate. The reflection has not changed. The rendering has. This is not speculation. People with body dysmorphic disorder see a genuinely distorted version of their own face, not because their eyes are broken, but because their brain's prediction engine is warped, locked into a model that does not match reality. And here is the terrifying part. That mechanism exists in all of us. Healthy perception is simply a milder version of the same process. No one has ever seen their own face as it truly is. Every mirror shows you a rendering, and you have been trusting it your entire life. And it does not stop at your own reflection. When you look at someone you love, you are not seeing them. You are seeing your brain's model of them, constructed from emotion, memory, expectation, and association, layered over the raw sensory data like a filter you never chose and cannot remove. This is why the same face can look entirely different depending on what you feel. When you are in love, the features seem warmer, softer, almost luminous. After a betrayal, the same face can look cold, unfamiliar, almost unrecognizable. Not because anything about them has changed, but because your brain's rendering has shifted. Every person you have ever looked at has been a character in your brain's private movie. You have never directly experienced another human being, not once. You have only ever experienced your brain's story about them. So if every brain is running its own private visual simulation, how does anything work? How do we build cities, share languages, agree on what a stoplight means? The answer is not that we all see the same world. It is that our hallucinations are close enough, constrained by the same physics, shaped by the same biology, pressured by the same evolutionary demands. Our individual renderings overlap just enough to allow coordination. We agree on rough shapes, approximate colors, general boundaries, and from that fragile overlap, we have built entire civilizations. But close enough is not identical. 8 billion people are walking through 8 billion slightly different visual worlds right now, each one convinced theirs is the real one. What we call consensus reality is not objective truth. It is the narrow overlap zone in a Venn diagram of billions of controlled hallucinations, and we have built everything we know inside it. Step back far enough and something very strange comes into focus. The universe is made of matter and energy. Your brain is made of matter and energy, which means that when you open your eyes, what is actually happening is that the universe is using a small piece of itself to build a model of itself, not to see truth, not to record what is really there, but to survive, to navigate, to eat, to reproduce, to persist for one more generation. Consciousness may be nothing more than the universe's editing software, a hallucination engine that matter assembled over billions of years in order to move through itself without being overwhelmed by its own complexity. You are not separate from the cosmos, looking out at it. You are the cosmos, constructing a private movie theater inside a skull, and then forgetting that you built it. And here is where most people expect the nihilism to arrive. If nothing you see is real, if color's invented, detail is fabricated, and the whole visual world is a simulation running inside your skull, then does anything matter? But the answer is not what you think. A sunset does not become less beautiful because it is a brain-generated rendering of electromagnetic wavelengths. If anything, it becomes more beautiful because it means beauty is not something that exists out there, passively waiting to be observed. It is something your brain creates, actively, deliberately, from nothing but energy and memory and prediction. You are not a passive receiver of a beautiful universe. You are the artist. Every single time you open your eyes, you paint the world into existence, the colors, the depth, the warmth of light on skin, the face of someone you love. None of it was there before you rendered it. You made all of it. That is not a limitation. That is a superpower you forgot you had. So the next time someone tells you to open your eyes and see reality, remember, that is the one thing your eyes were specifically designed never to do. You have never, not once in your entire life, experienced raw, unedited reality. No human has. No human can. And that is okay, because the edited version, with its invented colors, its filled-in blind spots, its predicted faces, and its survival shortcuts, is the only version of the world that could ever fall in love. The only version that could stand before a sunset and feel something it cannot name. The only version that could look up at the stars and wonder why it exists at all. The unedited universe cannot do any of that. It has no color, no beauty, no meaning. You do, because your brain builds all three, from scratch, every moment you are conscious. The edit is not the obstacle between you and reality. The edit is the experience. And the experience, flawed, fabricated, and extraordinary, is yours. If your brain's prediction engine wants to see more videos like this, subscribe. And tell me in the comments which part disturbed you most. The blind spots, the color, the fact that you have never truly seen another person's face. Because next time, we are going somewhere even stranger. What if your memory is doing the exact same thing your eyes do?